So what I'm actually here to talk about language and culture, but I thought I'd open up and make everybody laugh because Susie's right. A lot of heavy topics we're talking about today, but it's amazing to see so many positive, influential people in our community here today. So most of you know that I'm in council. Since 2009, I was 29 when I ran, and right away, language and culture was one of the portfolios that I wanted to be involved with. Growing up in Kahnawake in the 80s, I'm showing my age, I got to go to Kahsennenhawe, Diuderiwa Estakwa, and there solidified my identity, who I was, Ungwehuwe, Kanyagahaga of Kahnawake, Wagatahuni, and being born into a family. Well, I'll say two families, of course. My mother's family was very Catholic, still is. So I acknowledged and went into, I guess we had religion class back then, Catholic religion, and I got to make my own choice in life of what I wanted to go into. And what resonated with me was always Dinugwari Hoda and our cycle of ceremonies. That's where I felt alive. And I didn't start going to Longhouse probably until my 20s. Most of you know I lived away for a while. But some of what was talked about early on today, if I could be the poster child of a successful Kahnawake Hironu, I would say that's me. Someone who got to grow up in their language, in their culture at Kahsennenhawe, went to school off the reserve, got a good education, lived away, got to experience, got to know people of different cultures, respect and have friends all over the place, come back to the community and give back and work for your community. You know, that's what we would expect all of our children to have, that kind of experience. And I guess in being involved in language and culture, I was on the Cultural Center board since 2009. If most of you aren't aware, the Cultural Center will be celebrating its 40th anniversary this coming fall. So I remember speaking to Gayadidake Jacobs, and she was telling me that there was a time in this community when if you talked about language and culture, oh my God, that's bad. We don't want to go there, you know, and I think it resonated from the residential school experience. You know, there were people in this community that were beaten and abused for being who they were. If they spoke their language, if they wanted to practice their culture, a lot of what Susie talked about, that multi-generational trauma, you know, it was a bad thing. But when you look around this community today, it's everywhere. Language and culture is all around us. There's a big flag flying, you know, by the arena. You could see tattoos, and there's on stickers on people's cars. Everybody's proud to be Ungwehuwe. They're proud to be Haudenosaunee. But what does that mean? And I know a lot of times people have told me, how are you on language and culture? You're out of a circle. You're a band counselor. Come on. And I say, well, I can't change who I am. I'm still, if I was to take off my chief hat tomorrow and not run, I would still be a Kanyagahaga person. I would still go to the Longhouse. I would still practice my ceremonies, and that would still resonate with me. So, you know, it was important too, I think, what Susie identified about the labels and the things we say to one another. So real quick, I know the language, or I'll say, Kanyagahaga Ungawanarao Dijokwa Language and Culture Center, although they have the mandate, they can't do it alone. You know, this community is growing. I think we have about 7,000 people now living on reserve. And there's the Radiwanahnirdats program. There's all kind of things that are stemming up in the community. Gariwagatste, the language nest. I don't know if Raguranta Daibo is here, where the creek runs clear. There's all kind of programs that are developing, and we as a collective need to support and enhance the programs and service delivery that's going on in the community. I know it was talked about education. I know a long time ago there was the blueprint, and I'm sure with your strategic planning that you've done recently, you know, there's a lot you need to take into account to ensure that, you know, you're servicing everybody. And I think in the language and culture I guess, field, if you want to call it. That's something we're looking at to ensure that everybody is being covered, because it's important from when a baby is born that parents can transmit and transfer language and identity to that baby. And then I think there's been an attitude, I guess, in the community that, well, when I bring my child to school, it's their responsibility to teach my child what it means to be Ungwehungwe. And really, it should come from the home. You know, people should know now who we are and how to encourage and foster these children so that they can speak the language. So right there, if, you know, I was going to Garinuha school and I would come home, and I don't think my style was a Mohawk speaker, but I had my father, his family, they were all teachers, so I was fortunate to be able to foster my language. And not only that, the girls that I went to elementary school with, when we went to high school, we said, we don't want to forget, you know, because the other kids would tease us, oh, you're going to school off the reserve, you're going to become white. You're going to think like a white person, you're not going to know who you are. And we said, no, that's not going to be us. We're going to make sure that we speak to each other and that we're going to encourage and foster our language. So that foundation was set for me, luckily. And I know there's a lot of people in here that didn't have the benefit of going to an immersion school. So to learn now as an adult, it's really challenging. And I commend the people who go to Radiwana Nirats or who take the MCK Language and Culture Training Program, which I did. I took the 5-year program. And it was more like a refresher for me because I had been there, I had learned all of that. So for a lot of people, it's fear, you know. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want people to judge me if I say the wrong thing. I don't want people to laugh at me. But I think those days are long gone, you know. And people are encouraging others to learn, and that we pick each other up so that we ensure that the future generations have a strong identity in who they are. And from that, you know, the possibilities are endless of where we go. I just wanted to highlight the fact that I did mention already that the Cultural Center can't do it alone. And I know the different organizations in the community have been developing programs, like the hospital. If you go to the hospital, there's a lot more cultural, there's pictures, they do it a Honda Garwidekwa in the morning. Step by Step already mentioned that incorporating language and culture into daily activities, that it's not just a daycare, you know. These kids learn from a young age about what it means to be Ganyak Gahaga. The schools in the community, Gariwanordu and Indian Way. So the vision is up here. 2029 is going to come a lot quicker than we think. And we developed this shared community vision, I want to say in 2008. I remember I wrote one of the essays. I was living in Florida at the time, and I had something to say. You know, I always did. I was always vocal. Even when I was a young person, I was involved in youth forums and youth groups, and I always wanted to ensure that other youth had the same encouragement that I did. I mean, luckily I had a Ista who was a truant officer, a guidance counselor, so education was paramount in my home. And on my father's side, knowing language, culture, identity, going to the longhouse, practicing ceremonies was also important, so I got a very good balance. So what I wanted to say here today is that I did propose, I sent letters out recently for us to develop a language and culture network. We know there's an EDC, there's an Executive Directors Committee, which I commend the 4 organizations for putting this event on today. I mean, it's nice to see so many faces here and developing where we want to go and how we're going to get there. But language and culture, as we know, is very paramount. So, I lost my train of thought. Oh, about the letters and the Language and Culture Network. So what's happening, I'm sure most of you are aware that Mohawk Council sold our shares in Continent Aid, and there's this pool of money that's sitting out there. And we don't get federal funding for language and culture, although, you know, there's a good talk right now, nation to nation, and about truth and reconciliation, and about all of the admittance of wrongs that they did to our people over the years. But only now are we starting to see that there's a willingness and a commitment to invest in language and culture in this community. We're probably going to have a new cultural center and theater and museum in the next little while. And it's important, though, for the collaborations to continue, because that was a collaboration between the Cultural Center, Mohawk Council of Kahnawake, the museum. So when we put our minds together, we could see the fruits of our labor. I mean, this community is amazing. All of the different institutions we have is because somebody had a vision and they had the, wherewithal to bring the people together and say, let's make this happen. And although, we say it's colonial, the way our community is set up, we're helping each other. It's Kahnawake Hrono servicing Kahnawake Hrono, and we're all trying to pick each other up. So with regard to language and culture, bringing together this group of people who are working in this field to say, what are we doing? Are we sharing information with each other to ensure that there's no gaps, overlaps in services? Are we using our financial resources to the best possibilities that we can? Because now there's going to be this money that we could access, and we want to ensure that we're putting it out there for any community member who wants to learn and get back onto, their ways, or we'll call it getting back on the path of our ways, to speaking Ganyageha and Gowana, and that will help to instill the roots of having a strong identity, respecting our values and principles as who we are as Ngwehunwe, and with that, we'll help create a stronger tomorrow together. Yaokoa.